going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast. And today we got the second episode of the 2024 Chicago Bears Draft Prospect Series on the channel. And today will be all about finding a edge rusher opposite of Montez Sweat, just filling the void at the position with 5 edge rushers that the Chicago Bears should consider in this upcoming draft. And today's a pretty special episode because edge rushers are such a fun position to look at, but at the same time, they're very tough evaluation as well. Today, we got guys that could easily go in the first round with the 9th overall pick of the Chicago Bears. Then we also got guys that could be fringe first round picks, but also could fall early into the second round. So if the Chicago Bears do get a trade done in some certain way, if it's trading down or trading Justin Fields, we could see a couple of those prospects actually being picked by the Chicago Bears as well. Very good players. And then lastly, we got one more guy today that could easily fall into the 4th, 5th round of the 2024 NFL draft, and he could still provide very well pressure on the opposite side of Montez Sweat as a rotational player. So I'm super excited for today's episode. I love watching draft prospects and the scouting, just entire scouting process is always so much fun. So let's not waste any more time. I'm so excited for those 5 players that we'll want to talk about today. And yeah, let's start it off with the first one, which is actually an absolute banger in Dallas Turner out of Alabama. And Dallas Turner is one of the more well-known edge rushers in the 2024 NFL draft. For many, many people, the number 1 player at the edge rusher position in this year's draft. And I can certainly agree with that to a certain extent. But yeah, let's get right into what I saw on tape. First and foremost, I mean, the guy's playing with great leverage. He uses the leverage to his advantage. And also his athleticism is off the charts. He is probably the guy with the most upside in this year's draft class. He's using that athleticism already pretty well in his explosiveness off the line to threaten the offensive tackle vertically, which is obviously so important as a modern-day edge rusher. He does use speed to power already pretty well, so if he gets really moving vertically, he will push you back into the quarterback space. So that was really impressive on tape. Strength against the run is something I noted as well. He has really strong hands to shed quick off of blocks, and then also against LSU, one play came to my mind immediately again after just thinking about his tape where he had great hands, threatened the offensive tackle with speed, did a swipe move, and wins quick there on that play. And the swipe was just so quick. It happened within a millisecond. It seemed like he won that rep. So he's a little bit inconsistent. I have to tell you that right away, but he does have a lot of potential, and you saw that on that single play against LSU, 100%. Also, he's a heads-up player. He does bat the ball down if he doesn't win on certain rushes, so he still keeps his head in the game and does something to help the defense out. And then lastly, something I have to mention is against Tennessee, against a pretty good competition. Again, he was put into coverage situations a lot on that game, but he could actually do it. He has very fluid hips, super solid, and to me, that's pretty crazy for a guy his size moving that well, and it just shows his great athletic ability with his upside. Now, for him as a pass rusher overall, he still needs to work on a couple of things. He's still a pretty raw player in that aspect. He doesn't rush with a plan yet. He still needs to develop a counter move to his speed to power, but man, athletically speaking, Dallas Turner is an absolute beast, and if Matt Eberflus is actually confident enough and doesn't want to pick a receiver or something else with the 9th overall pick and Dallas Turner is here, he might want to take him and mold him into one of the better pass rushers in the entire NFL, and he definitely does have the potential. It's just all about developing players, and for me, that's kind of scary because the Bears do have issues developing players, but defensively, I 100% trust Matt Eberflus, so I would be actually really happy with that pick, as we now actually want to move on to another guy that could be potentially available with the number 9th overall pick for the Chicago Bears, another competitor of Dallas Turner for the best edge rusher in the 2024 draft class, and Jared Verse out of FSU. And Jared Verse for me is also a very, very interesting player that could easily, as I said, compete for the number 1 edge rusher spot in 2024. Getting into his tape and what I liked, first and foremost, the get off, really super explosive off the line, one of the better ones in the entire draft class. He does gain speed vertically quickly, which is so important, and he does play with leverage just like Dallas Turner as well. one thing that pops off, I think everybody sees that. Power with Jared Verse, really good bull rush, speed to power, he kills people, and he's just such a strong dude, and that doesn't only apply for pass rush situations. Also, I love his plays against the run. He's definitely more molded already than Dallas Turner in the run game. Very patient player. He holds the gap so well. He doesn't get moved at all. Really quick off the block. He does get off the blocks well and has good block shedding. And then lastly, his backside pursuit too. I mean, he does read the quarterback's eyes well. He doesn't get fooled too much, especially on read options. I mean, if the quarterback sees the end crashes, he pulls it. If not, he gives it to the running back. And Jared Verse does a great job of being patient, reading it well, and had a couple of plays where he made some outstanding stops against multiple quarterbacks that could potentially run as well. So he was aware of that threat and made some really good plays, and also had some glimpses as a pass rusher again of great bend, which is obviously super important. His ankle flexibility, his hips, if he can get around a corner or turn the corner on someone, he definitely was able to do that as well. And I mean, if I had to decide between Dallas Turner and Jared Verse, it would be pretty tough because I think Dallas Turner is, athletically speaking, a little bit better, but Jared Verse also great athlete, great player, and offers a lot of great stuff for an NFL defense. So it will be interesting if the Chicago Bears are actually in a position to pick an edge rusher in the first round anyways. But if they do, the decision won't be that easy because Laiatu Latu is also in there, and I didn't include him in today's video, but he's a really good rusher too. So there's three players that are fighting for that number one edge spot, and it's kind of like more who do you trust to develop players, who do you want, and I mean, for the Chicago Bears, you got lots of great options, but Jared Verse, definitely a fun player to look at. As we now want to move on to the kind of the fringe first round, early second round guys that are super interesting and probably two of my favorite players on defense in the entire 2024 draft class. And starting it off with an absolute banger with Darius Robinson out of Missouri. And man, the second I turn on Darius Robinson's tape, I think I was in love. He's 1,000% one of my favorite players in the entire draft class. Doesn't matter offense, defense, special teams. I mean, when you look at his tape, such an explosive player that plays with so much heart. Early on, you saw a great swim move. That's his go-to pass rush move. It's not speed to power. It's not a finesse move. It's an early on swim move that he brings so many times against the run and against the pass. He sets up his rushes so well. Great core strength and just the strength in his arms as well to swipe away offensive linemen and then swimming over them was pretty impressive on tape. In combination with that really good hand placement, so quick off and pass blockers against the run and the pass. I mean, it was so impressive on tape. He was so dominant against Georgia, dominated them all game long against SEC offensive linemen, really good offensive linemen, to say the least, of Georgia. High effort player, gives 1,000% on every single play. The eyes against the run were phenomenal too. Like, he was not getting fooled at all by read options or play fakes. He knew what he was doing and what he was going to get. Really strong core as a player too against the run. The power is crazy. And then also for me personally, I saw some people report that his agility and movement skills are not that well. I think his agility and movement skills are actually pretty solid. And one example was against South Carolina, against Spencer Rattler. He had a sack where he did do a pretty beautiful crossover move, just like in basketball. He was setting up to go to the left and then bend it back inside and got into the pocket for a sack. So for me, honestly, his movement skills are pretty solid, but there's also some things he needs to work on. Obviously, if not, he would be a little bit higher up the board, but he needs to work on his pass rush repertoire, his arsenal of moves. Mostly, as I said, he goes with a quick swim move that works so well in many, many ways, but in the NFL, you need to adjust a little bit and get just a little bit more pass rush moves in your pass rush arsenal. Also, a solid athlete, but nothing crazy, and he needs to rush with a plan a little bit more as well. It seems like a couple of times he did not rush with a plan and was just relying on his power in his arms and core, but overall, I mean, Darius Robinson, I don't know where he goes, maybe early second round, and for me, he's just such a great player to watch. He's such a fun player, and he's elite against the run already. He showed so many promising things as a pass rusher too. I mean, you get a complete player that will start right away, that still has some upside, isn't fully developed yet. I mean, I can only dream about Darius Robinson and Montez Sweat rushing the NFC North quarterbacks. It would be so much fun to watch. But yeah, let's actually move on to another guy that's also named Robinson that will go absolutely crazy in the NFL if correctly developed, and that is Chop Robinson out of Penn State. And yeah, moving from Robinson to Robinson, Chop Robinson out of Penn State is an insane evaluation as well. I mean, he was also crazy to watch and certainly one of my favorite players in this year's draft class too. I mean, the athletic upside, it's on Micah Parsons' level. He was used in a similar way at Penn State, and you do see the glimpses of Micah Parsons in his game. Now, he is not fully developed at all. He's still a pretty raw player, but if he gets molded by a correct coach, which Matt Eberflus and his defensive coaches could be the correct coaching staff, and we deserve such a coaching staff for the first time in Chicago since forever. But yeah, Chop Robinson, I mean, as I said, upside is crazy. The athletic profile, he's an absolute freak player. And I said Jared versus Get Off was good. Man, I mean, Chop Robinson's Get Off was absolutely crazy to watch. Please go ahead and watch 2 to 3 Penn State games of 2023. You will be amazed how quickly this guy gets upfield. When you pause at the moment or stop the video at the moment where the ball is being snapped, this guy is already vertically attacking and already going full speed, where the other players are still in their stances, starting to just realizing that the ball was being snapped. I mean, it was insane on tape. I'm not kidding. Insane on tape. He gets vertical so fast. He does have a really nice two-hand chuck, which is just basically swiping hands away with two hands. He does it so quickly. He just moves around tackles. They don't even have a chance to react to him because he's so quickly upfield. It's insane. Really good placement of his hands too. Then also moving on, he has great bend, great flexibility in his lower body, the ability to dip and just quickly get around the corner, around the offensive tackle too. He can drop into coverage, looks so smooth doing it. That's the thing, like Micah Parsons, he can rush from the middle as a stand-up linebacker. He can drop into coverage. He can rush from the edges. I mean, the upside is as high as it gets in this entire draft class. Now, what does he need to work on? First and foremost, run defense, just getting better with fits, and also block shedding, getting off the block, and his pass rush repertoire is still pretty limited, but it's not the strength that he's lacking. It's just being a football player and just playing a little bit more and getting more snaps, but if Chop Robinson is being developed correctly, he could be a premier edge rusher in the NFL and a pretty special talent at that too, like something you don't see often at the edge rusher position. So such a fun evaluation. Great player, Chop Robinson. Check him out. It was insane to watch. I can just repeat it a couple of times. And yeah, with that being said, let's actually move on to the last guy of today's episode, which is also a very fun evaluation in Muhammad Kamara, aka Mo Kamara, out of Colorado State. And Mo Kamara will be probably the guy in today's episode that could drop a little bit lower in the 2024 NFL draft, but that's completely fine because we all love the underrated players in every single draft class and just evaluating players and predicting if they still could be good, even though they will be later round picks. And Mo Kamara is a pretty special player too. As so many players in today's list, really good get off the line, pretty explosive player. He's a little bit undersized. I think he's only 6 foot or 6'1", maybe even 6'2". I'm not 100% sure right now, but I think 6'1", something like that. So a little bit on the smaller side. He attacks vertically as a player, really strong core and good bend. Bend really struck out on tape to get around the edge. Versatility lined up all around the defensive line, even though primarily he was an edge rusher coming off of wide 9 or at 5 technique, but still, player that can line up in multiple spots of the defensive line will be valuable to any defense that he gets to. Really good pass rush arsenal already too of rush moves. I mean, the thing is, Mo Kamara might not be the most explosive player or most fancy player that will strike you with his athleticism, but he wins a lot, and that's the thing that matters probably the most. He gets home to the quarterback, and he will be a player that will be probably pretty effective early on in his NFL career. Now, some things he needs to work on, as I said, not your typical edge rusher size and length. of an NFL edge rusher, and he can also get stuck on blocks against the run too, so he did struggle to block shed against certain situations, but still at the end of the day, Mo Kamara is a fun player to watch. He's a guy that you could probably get in the 4th round, 5th round, and just stack up your defensive line. And the Chicago Bears, even though they need a true starter there, and I'm not saying Mo Kamara cannot develop into a starter, but even though you need a true starter, you also need more depth on the team. Yes, you have DeMarcus Walker, but after that, for me personally, there's some players that could be replaced on the Bears roster that haven't played well in a couple of years now. So, yeah, Mo Kamara, something you have to have in the back of your mind when you watch the NFL draft, and would definitely be a great player, even though he's out of Colorado State, and some people might be, hey, who's that guy? No, Mo Kamara is going to be a solid guy for the NFL team that gets him, and I hope it's going to be the Chicago Bears because he would definitely be a great addition. And with that being said, guys, that's the end of the episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think of those 5 edge rushers that I named today. Also, if you want to, feel free to check out episode 1 of the Draft Prospect series of this year, and yeah, that was all about wide receivers, so if you're interested into that, feel free to check that one out. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Check out Instagram and Twitter if you want to as well. And as always, guys, bear down.